Welcome everyone back to the Pro series. I'm Jacob and today we'll be going through loan limits and override. In YouTube, there should be a chat feature right here. You can use this to talk to me. I'll answer any questions. And let's get started. So we'll begin at, like we always do, at the home page. Just bring it up and then switch my screen. Alrighty. Cameras there, good to go. So, begin for loan limits. We have a bunch to get through. A quick overview is that we'll be going over through the class grade, looking at loan type, looking at individual patron loan limits, cataloging a loan type, how to set a loan type for a catalog and its duration, and then we'll be jumping into circulation and doing some examples. So from homepage, we can go into the system menu, go down to configuration and authority editor. From here, we'll use the drop-down box and find class grade, and this is where we'll need to decide which loan limit we want to edit. So for today's video, I'll be looking at the class grade called 07. Click the little pencil icon in the corner, open it up, and here we have our loan limits. A bunch of information on the screen. Let's dive into it. So to begin, we have loan limit. This right here is the value of how many items or records a patron can borrow. Once they reach this limit, circulation will give an error message saying this, or a warning message, saying this patron has borrowed too many books. Loan period is the duration of the loan. So it's in days. So our default total is 14 days. Renewal limit is how many times a patron can renew a single item. And then we have a specialized column for renewal period, which will give a special value whenever you want to hit the renew button in circulation. So we have it set to 3 here. And finally, we have reserve limits, which dictates how many items a student can reserve through the school collection. Next, we have some tick boxes. Multi-copy allows the patron to borrow multiple copies of the same book. Usually this is not allowed and will need to be enabled from this column here. And then we have patron override. I'll be going through override more in depth later, but essentially what it does, it allows to override a book's loan type. So if a loan type is 2 weeks, but you want the student to borrow the book for 4 weeks, you'll be setting loan period to 28 days. And then with patron override enabled, it will loan the book out for 28 days. So I'll go through it more in depth when we hit through the circulation example so you can see it a bit more clearly. But what this does is it will ignore the loan type of a book and set the loan period to whatever is assigned to this value. Additionally, we can alter or specialize media types and give each media its own unique loan limit. As you can see already here, I have book and camera as my media columns, or media rows, sorry. Our book has, our patron can only borrow 5 books. Loan period is of 2 weeks. They can only renew it once. Renew period is 3, and they can only reserve up to 5 books. Again, with camera, one limit, they can only borrow 1 camera for a week, can't renew it, no renewal period, and they can only reserve 1 camera at a time. Add a new media. All you have to do is go into this column here, select which one you want to add, and scroll down the list of all your media you have. We have, let's go with game. You can borrow out a Nintendo Switch if you have them at your library. We can decide that they can only borrow 1 Nintendo Switch at a time. You can only do this for, they might want to use it over the school holidays. Let's do a 2-week period. And then renewal type, they can't renew this. And they can only reserve 1. Once that's done, we can now hit save. This saves our loan limits. Finally, we have 2 text fields here that you can input dates. Final borrow is the final date that you can decide upon of when you want the final time a student can borrow a book. And then expiry is when this class or this loan limit will cease to work. So for example, ideally you'd want final borrow to be maybe 2 weeks before the end of term, and then expiry to be the end of term. That way kids have an ability to borrow one last time and then return it before the school year ends. Additionally, you can set these up to be end of term as well. So this is loan limits through the authority editor, through class grade. We'll save this and jump into another authority editor called loan types. Now, loan types is specific for a copy of a book. Down here, we have different durations of a loan that we can give to a book. So for example, we have one called fortnightly, opens up with the pencil icon. And here, the loan type fortnightly has a loan period of 2 weeks, and then a final borrow of a predetermined date that we can alter and change. So what this means is that no matter what, this book assigned to this loan type can only be borrowed for 2 weeks, and if it's borrowed, and it can't be borrowed beyond the 22nd of December. All right, that's a lot to go. That's a lot. So let's jump into. Let's look at some examples, but we'll get into it. So from the system menu, we're jumping into Patron Management this time. From Find, we can look up our patron. I have Jacob Smith ready to go, who will be our guinea pig for the day. Use his barcode. Easy to look him up. There we go. So Jacob Smith is in the class grade 07, just the one we're playing with. And if we jump into loan limit from the tab up here, loan limit right here, we can see what we're just working on is displayed here, as loan limits are reflected by a user's class grade. If you change the class grade, the loan limits will change. I'll do a quick example of how that's done. So if you see a class grade here, click class grade, we'll click 12, click save, then we go into loan limits, it's different. Jump back into login, revert this class grade back to 07, click save, and there's the one we've been playing with. All right. So some additional things you can do here. First up, no matter what you do here, so say I want to change this to 100 days. Click save. See what happened there? Lock limits turned on. Because we set this different to the class grade, it needs to be unique per patron. And that's what lock limits does. It makes our loan limits unique to the patron. This way we can set up things such as, say a student wants an exception to view adult fiction. So what we can do is, we can lock their limits, go into media type, look up adult fiction, and then we can give them loan limits to adult fiction. And then we can go ahead and assign a security value to adult fiction so no one else can borrow it, but these students can. However, if we want them to use the same class grade as all year 7s, click no, click save, and then it reverts. All right, that's patron loan limits. Let's jump into catalog now. I'll open up this in a new tab. We have our example book, Cats. And if we expand our copy, we can see loan type here. And this is where we can change it. This will determine how long a book can be borrowed for. So I guess we can do some examples now. We'll jump into circulation, open this up, bring up Jacob Smith. I will renew this, I'll return this, and then we can go through some examples. So I'm going to copy the barcode of Cats. And if we look at Patron Management here, if we turn Patron Override off for now, click Save, what's going to happen is when we borrow this book, the book should have a 2-week loan period as dictated by the loan type here. Go into circulation, we paste our, scan in our barcode, click enter, book's been loaned, and we have a due date of 14 days. Awesome. Then if you look at our loan limits, If we renew this, the period will be 3 days. So if we go into circulation, we want to hit renew, and then have due in 3 days, like that. I will return this, and then we can go and edit some features. So if I click now Patron Override, so now we want this book to be loaned out for 8 days. Click save. Now these are saving again because we have lock limits enabled. Go into circulation. We shall borrow the book again. Just like that, our book is now due in 28 days. That's the Patron override feature in work. However, there is another way or another override feature that you can use. In catalog, each book has the ability, each copy actually has the ability to override anything. You'll above all and above on, you want a book to only have a set due date, or due loan period, sorry. You'll want to select override. Enable that, click save. Now, no matter what, this copy here will always have a 2-week loan period. This is useful for such thing as laptops, where you don't want students to have exceptions. Now, if we jump back into circulation, we will return this. And when we borrow this, it will say 2 weeks. There we go, 2 weeks. And we can change this one to 4 weeks. Click save. And then we shall borrow it again. Just like that. It will now only listen to that override tag and whatever is listed in the loan type category. And for the final example, I will show how final borrow works. The final borrow is the last date a student can borrow a book. And so if I, for example, set their book, they can loan this book for 1 year. Actually, put it here, there we go. They can loan a book for 1 year. We'll jump into circulation. Let's see what happens when they borrow a book now. So I'll return this one and then re-borrow it. So instead of being able to borrow it for a year, they can only borrow it up to the due date. The final borrow date, which becomes the due date no matter what. So they only have 55 days till it's due, despite having a loan period of 1 year. That's final borrow date. And if I, for example, change this to, let's go next year, March, click save, and then re-borrow that book. Let's see here. This is a tricky one. Because I have final borrow set here, and we see here what's gone wrong. The due date is still the 22nd of the 12th. That is because the loan type of this book, fortnightly, has a final borrow that's sooner. So I'll jump back into Authority Editor. Put it over here. And we scroll down to loan type. And we go to fortnightly. And we can see here, this loan type is a final borrow of 22nd of the 12th. So a final borrower will take priority, no matter what. And so if we set this, say, to 2022, click save. And now we renew the book in circulation. We can see our due date is now our patron's final borrow date. And it's because this date is sooner than any other final borrow date in the system. Well, then to keep in mind of when you are setting up loan types. We've gone through a lot. Let's do a quick recap. Go back into, this is Authority Editor, which is just, you can get to it by using the system menu, scrolling down to configuration, hitting Authority Editor, then use the drop-down box here to go into class grade. This is your hub of being able to change loan limits for each class grade. Jump into a class grade. And then we can, in here, change specific loan types, either overall with the total row, or through specified media types through here. We can add them as we see fit. Loan limits is how many books a patron can loan at a single time, or in total, sorry. Loan period is the duration of the loan. Renewal limit is how many times they can renew a book. Renewal period is a duration of when you do renew an item, the duration they can then have the book loaned out for. Reserve limit is how many times or how many books they can have or records they can have reserved at a time. Multi-copy is a option you can tick and untick to allow a patron to borrow out the same multiple copies of the same item. And then patron override allows a patron to override a book's loan type. We then have final borrow and expiry. These dates indicate the last time a book can be borrowed with final borrow, and then how an expiry will dictate how long this loan limit is active for. So after this date, this loan limit won't be active, and a student with this loan limit won't be able to borrow a book, or a warning message will appear in circulation. Next up, we have loan type. This allows us to change the final borrow and the loan period of a records loaned type. So we can decide if it's fortnightly or monthly or yearly, and change the final borrows and loan periods as soon as we see fit. And then through Patron Management, we can look at their loan limits, which is based on class grade, and then lock the limits for individual patrons if we want different or specialized loan limits for them. And then finally, in Catalog, we can view that the loan types for the copies are in here. And then if we want the record to always listen to the loan type, we can just select Override here. That's an in-depth look at loan limits and the override function that we support. Thank you all for watching. I'll stick around for a couple minutes to answer any questions if anyone has any. But if not, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time. Yeah.